Recording. Let's go. All right.
Let's hit
Here
it.
is
You're gonna hit it.
our intro. Nope, that's not the intro.
Psych. Gets me every time.
Where is it?
Welcome to the Tar and Feather Podcast. Here are your hosts, Mustached Vet and Ganglion Cortex.
Oh, welcome
Hello.
to the Independence Day Special on Tar and Feather Podcast.
It is
I'm your host,
Independence
Mustache
Day.
Vet. To the left of me, I have Ganglion Cortex.
What up?
And our guest, coming from the great state of None Your Business, retired Air Force, A-10 Warhog crew chief, patriot in arms, brother in Christ, Dean the Mean Remington. How you doing, brother?
I salute you, gentlemen, for what you're doing here. I'm doing great here, sweating it out here in the Gulf Coast, trying to stay cool ahead of the game.
Right on, man. Right on.
Getting
It
ahead
is.
of that cyclonic action that's headed your way.
I'm seeing some not so good stuff staying south of us, which is good, but that's the nature of the beast here living.
I saw
in this
Athena said
swamp.
it was looking more like September.
I think so. Yeah, usually that's when Hurricane Sally hit this area. It was September, and that's usually when we start seeing the bigger stuff coming in, late August, September. So we're posturing ourselves, buying cases of water, getting the propane, right? The usual disaster preparedness. We have animals as well, so we have to think about our little ones.
Right.
And our loved ones.
Making sure they're not overheating and such.
A lot to prepare for.
Yes.
There's a lot to think about, yeah, in many places that we've lived or that you've lived, and I'm sure you've had to prepare for certain things, whether it was the heat or snow and ice. I mean, preparedness is probably the one thing that people overlook the most, but comes around and bites them the most. Like there's a lot of things with inherently getting yourself ready for certain situations, not just weather, but for anything, your travel, your work, your school, being out in society. There's just a lot of things we prepare for. So I think that podcast that we had before will cover a lot of things, and the fact that we're moving into what's known as our Freedom Day, the things that are so near and dear to our heart. And I just want to open up with a statement before you gentlemen carry on. And it says, "Those people who are not governed by God will be ruled by tyrants. Inscribed on our hallowed Liberty Bell are the words, 'Proclaim liberty throughout all the land until all the inhabitants thereof.'" And my personal conviction is I look at a multitude of freedoms. I look at a multitude of freedoms and liberties that we still have, ones that have gone away, ones that are being modified. Just try to circumvent and navigate those things that are inherent to us as patriots, number one, as God-fearing individuals, as family and freedom fighters for what's right, because there's so much that's wrong. And look at it as a whole. We are not the future. We are here guiding ourselves in the future, and our youth is the future as we're uplifting them. And we got to take a lot of that in consideration, because it's being overlooked and manipulated. It's being misconstrued and twisted. And we need to latch a hold of these youngins and kind of help them along, because in the end, they're the ones that'll be taking care of us. That's the way I look at it. I've always looked at it like that. My grandkids and 4 and 8 years old. What can I teach them in their freedom young years that'll carry them through to their freedom old years? And it's kind of how I live my life. From from a young age. Put a gun in my hand, shooting squirrels, rabbits at a young age, growing up in a kind of a freedom environment, and as well as getting into the military, learn a little bit about what that side of the world does, no matter where you're at in what part of the world. But yeah, and then transitioning out and just meeting a lot of good folks, the border tours, the Patriot meet and greet, some of our rallies, this podcast. I mean, these are all freedom loving, freedom fighting identities that you just can't put a price on it. There's no price. It's priceless. Like you guys.
It's worth it
Right.
all.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it.
Absolutely love it.
Such kind words. And it's true. That's what it's all about, right? Like, if you don't have freedom, what do you have? Like, isn't that what it's about?
That is what it's about. Being able to not be shackled. Being able to have that that
Well, so like
go for it.
like this tagline under my name, Brooke thought Chase said that earlier. Like, he was diving into the couch or doing something
Right.
crazy, and it just made a lot of sense. Freedom is the power to resist. Like, you do have the option to say no, right? Like, you have time and you have a process to go through your decision, right? When you don't, you have a lack of freedom, right? You're forced to do something you're not fully understanding or agree with. So just thought it was like a crazy little tagline that was really out of a just hearing something. I don't know.
Right.
No,
Maybe really think about it.
The power to resist, the power to react, the power to recreate. I mean, there's so much because, like I said, freedom is being attacked at every corner. I just watched something so destitute because I used to be a Boy Scout growing up, and I just watched this video of what they were doing in San Francisco and then what they're doing to the Scouts and just how they're capturing the youth, they're capturing people at different ages, stages in their life and manipulating them. And they're really stealing their freedom. If that was done to me at a young age, I had all the freedom in the world. I mean, honestly, I could pretty much do what I wanted as long as I kept within the law. My parents allowed me to do pretty much anything. So I guess you learn at a young age, like what the limits are, like as the reins get reeled out in freedom. Now you screw up, I guarantee my dad, my uncle, there'd be another family member reeling that in, and then my freedom was stolen. So I couldn't do something. And so I learned how to, like I said, you can manipulate that a little bit. And when they're taking it from you, whether it be a business, the government, some other entity, you kind of learn how to manipulate it, react to it, and take it back. Because no, in the end, nobody's going to take it. They'll try, but I was always taught that if you stand up to 100% of the people, 100% of the time, only about 98% or so are going to, or 2% are going to walk away, and 98% don't want to fight your battle. So I think resistance, the reaction, all the things that you do to modify things is the key. That is absolute a spot on mission statement right there.
I would say you probably saw a lot of that too, going through some of those COVID restrictions. If you just said, please, I want 1 minute to decide, the rest of the decision was made for you just by the people around you, just by asking for 1 minute. So, interesting point there.
Yeah, I just feel like free will is taken away from us. Everything's taxed. Everything is you've got to get permission from almost every corner in order to do something.
You don't actually have to. That's just like the assumption. There's a giant assumption you need permission to do anything and everything. That's the un-American way. The American way is to do it because you know it's right.
Right.
It'll work. You have the right to.
and I feel like COVID was the perfect example. The people that stood up, that didn't take the vaccine, that didn't buckle to any of this, that went out when, if they wanted to get groceries or whatever, they went out and got groceries, or they went outside, went out to the forest, go hiking or whatever, whenever they wanted to. And then everybody else was, taking in all that information that the government was putting out, that their governors were putting out, and they were holding themselves inside. And so that's what the government does. It scares you into not doing the things that you want to do, to be free, to live your life.
That is an excellent segue to what I wanted to read here real quick. Ooh. And it kind of comes straight out of this. I just call it a freedom doctrine. It's the pages of our forefathers. It's things that they experienced, they foresaw, and they forecasted and put some things in writing. But it says, how does tyranny begin? Why are there so many laws? Heroes are men of glory who are so honored because of some heroic deed. People often, out of gratitude, yield allegiance to them. Honor and allegiance are nice words for power. Power and allegiance can only be held rightfully by trust as a result of continued character. It says, when people acting in the name of the government violate ethics, they break the trust with we the people. The natural result for we the people is to pull back power, honor, and allegiance. The loss of power creates fear for those losing the power. Fearing the loss of power, people acting in the name of government often seek to regain or at least hold their power. Hence, to legitimize the request for control, laws and force are often instituted. And that's where we get into unchecked power. We move into rebellion. We move into, like, one of my mission statements during COVID is I would walk into the VA and I would wear this bandana, and I would be told time and time again, you have to wear a face diaper. You have to put on this mask. I said, I have one. It's my cloth. It's my cloth of freedom. No, you have to wear the mask. So underneath this would hang down, and I would have a mask on, but I would test these people in a reactionary measure. There would be a mask under it, and I would say, oh, you mean this mask? Yeah, that one. So I would mind control them and thinking, oh, they're going to power trip on me, and now I'm going to actually embarrass them on their power trip and make them look foolish. Yeah. So I had to think that way throughout the whole process. And as months went by, I learned to perfect that even more. And yeah, maybe I was pissing them off even more, but each time I would do it, no matter where I went. And I would take that, as soon as they would say something, I'd take that mask down and hang around there and just keep my thing on and walk around, and the bandana would slowly come down, and I'd wait for the next
victim.
To come over and question me.
I saw someone today with the face diaper on, right? And I stopped the car and I told him, brother, you don't need that thing anymore. And he looked at me and said, what? And I looked at him and I said, you are free. Then he said he was good, so I left. Yeah. But it was pretty funny. I was like, here I am on July 2nd, 2024, telling this guy, you're free. And so, I don't know, he was with like 3 other people that had him on. I think I have other theories about what they're doing. Really, you exposed yourself by virtue of all 4 of you wearing them. Like, where are you from? You're not from here, that's for sure.
No.
Are you going to rob this place? Or like, what's going on? Because that hasn't been a thing in 2 years. I don't know.
There's still people wearing them.
Well, it's kind of funny that wasn't there a state, New York, just recently, the governor got on there. They used to be the mask Nazis of society, and now they're like making a ordinance or something that you can't wear a mask. Masks are prohibited. So because of the crime, like you were saying, they were probably dressed up. So yeah, it's just funny how they can flip from one. Okay, so the disease or the whatever your plague is that you're fighting or trying to protect yourself from, that's no longer a player. But now the other side comes in. People have got accustomed to it.
Convenient.
Yeah, it's convenient. Yeah, and I think I think a lot of people with their words on it, and they made it cute. They made it like a symbolic thing, and it just got to be one of these things. Okay, let's create designer mask. I don't know how many times it pops up, and you got rhinestone masks. I mean, they just made it, and then kids being muzzled with little cute characters. I mean,
the Aurora, right? It's the uniform that people felt empowered by. So that's why it stayed around as long as it did, because the people who did wear it and embrace it felt a sense of power that they never had before.
Right.
It gave them confidence that they were lacking in. I don't know.
I kind of attribute that to like a not going to bash law enforcement, but there's some officers who maybe are a little short, maybe a little this and that growing up. Maybe they got picked on. As soon as they get a badge, they get out there and they get that first beat down. They feel that power. That can psychologically, if you read the psyche of things, once you give people that power, no matter what it is in their duties, in their life, or anything that they're doing, they feast for more. They starve for more. So they take it up to increments and levels, and that's inherent across the board. From top down, bottom up, whatever. You'll see that. And a person who's intrinsically yoked into a different mindset, you'll take that power, you'll mold it, you'll do good with it, where the other side is doing evil with it. And that's where that good power and that evil power come to clash. And that's kind of where we're at in the state of our country, the state of our world, the state of many things. That
I agree.
They tested some people. They gave them a little bit of power. They took their freedom. They gave it back to them. They gave them some more power. And they kind of just manipulated this whole scenario. And it really was a good social engineering experiment to see who would comply, who would sacrifice their freedom, who would go ahead and just go out and do stupid things and win stupid prizes in the name of us telling you what to do. You must do it. And this is because, we're telling you. So I blocked it all out.
Not going harder during that period.
Yep.
Exactly.
I remember 3 months in, Julia and I were heading up to the vape shop to get some vape juice and stuff for our little e-cigs or whatever. And I remember walking in without a mask, and everybody else had their mask on. And I'm walking in, and Julia's like, "Hey, put your mask on." I was like, "I didn't even bring it." Like, for this purpose, because I'm not even going to say, "Oh, I have it." I was like, "All right, I'm not wearing this." And the whole time that I was in there, nobody said a word to me. I was able to shop just fine. I was able to get the things that I needed, get the juice that I needed, and I walked right out. A couple eyeballs on me, but I don't care. I don't care what other people think. I was doing the same thing in the grocery store like 3 months after all the lockdowns and stuff too. After 3 months, I was done. I was done with it. But I felt like 3 months was too long. I felt like it took me forever to finally get to that point. And there was still people a year later at work or whatever, if you didn't get your vaccine and you weren't wearing a mask at work, and you got COVID, they weren't covering your 2 weeks for COVID. So then it was kind of like your neighbor is now watching you. And so now we've got if you weren't wearing your mask, then you don't get time off for being sick, or you have to use your regular sick days, which was fine with me. But it was like you're pitting your neighbor against you.
Corporate fascism, along with other people being used as spies, watching what you're doing, reporting to someone, creating this little network of, I don't know, just whatever they're doing.
True.
They think it.
What the administrative state cannot get done through force directly, they'll use their corporatocracy friends to do the rest. And that's how they get certain things done, right? Like, so you have a certain threshold for the environmental regulations, but then it's the corporations who go and take the football and run it through the touchdown, right? Because they could turn around and say, we're the only ones producing cars in America.
Yep.
And you're pushing us too far. But yet they cradle this agenda, thinking if they cradle it, it'll protect them. And they're seeing that it's not, right? Because now it's consuming them, because they invested so much money in all these electric cars, and they're not returning. There's no return now. And
Well,
so
the only reason why they
slowly
wanted to do
figuring
that
out.
Well, the reason why they want to do that, why they want to push these regulations, is because they have the money to make these new items. That you're not going to get a startup company coming out making a cool car, making a cool EV right off the bat. You already have your Teslas, you already have your GM and
It
your
all
Fords,
deals
right?
with force, right? That's the problem. They forced it, and it didn't work.
Yeah, but they have the money to go through all this. They know that they're going to get bankrolled at the end.
They don't have the money. That's why a truck costs $70,000 now, because they're charging you for their experiment.
Correct.
Yeah, but the government's going to bail them out.
Look, well, we're bailing them out. The government doesn't. Yeah, we're bailing them out because the government doesn't do anything. So the coffers that are being siphoned off for the windmills and all that little solar world and all that, and the coffers for the EV and the ones that are being manipulated here and there and everywhere, that's our money, and they're stealing it.
Every billion.
Yep. Million, billion, trillion, whatever, however they're doing, they're stealing it. And that's where I get into this right here. Jefferson's warning. In 1789, Thomas Jefferson warned that if the judiciary is given too much power, it might ruin our republic and destroy our rights. The new Constitution has secured these individual rights in the executive and legislative developments, but not in the judiciary. It should have established trials by people themselves, that is to say, by jury. Emphasis was added. So we see right now where the
easiest way I can phrase it, the judges are there on behalf of the government, right? Like, they're there to protect the governmental interest. And I think that's what that quote's getting at, is that you're going against the government. You're not going against another citizen.
Right. This is where we're at in our place and time. And they had the foresight, that the fortitude, the pure conscience to think, if we don't get a handle on this, you are going to have this higher power that'll always be hammering down on the people. And no matter what you do, you can't fart in the wind, you can't, spit in the water. They're always coming after you. We're going to create a law, a regulation, an order, something to continue to keep people funneled through the judicial system to get wrapped up. Because once you're in those systems, once you do something wrong, you have to go through a system. You're in it for so long, whether it's a day, a month, a year, whatever. So they've created this illusion in it. The other people that are truly committing crimes and doing stuff are within the facet in the collection of going against the people, because they're doing it. They don't want you to do it, but we're going to spank your hand and slap you on the butt, and we're going to scold you and fine you and all, but you can't, we're going to do what we do. That's how it's set up. Now it's very convoluted. If you don't, I'm not a lawyer. I went to school 2 years for criminal justice. I learned a lot of stuff in my studies, and the whole system, it's top down, bottom up. Within that system, there's a lot of rigging. There's a lot of it's a tangled web. If you understand just some of it, you'll never understand all of it, because it is so tangled.
It's designed to not understand it all.
Correct.
No one person. Takes a team.
That's why you have people go to college for 6-8 years in order to understand any of the writing. Just to read a contract, you have to have somebody that went to school to know how to translate this. Like, you're translating Latin. That's essentially what you're trying to do, is that you're trying to translate a totally different language
by
at
design,
this point.
to confuse.
it takes you down many avenues. It's very gray. It's understanding to some and basically obsolete to others. But the bottom line is we know the system is flawed. We look down on it, and we can only help those who we can help, and we can stay above it by learning these avenues, learning what they're doing, and every time they do stuff, circumvent it. Like this whole inflation thing. This control with power and money. The central bank, the World Economic Forum, the Federal Reserve. People don't even understand our monetary system to a degree where they're like, I was all right with 2%. I'm all right with 6%. I'm all right with 8%. I'm all right with 10%. That is the slowly progressive pyramid step climb to stealing your freedom. And people don't even know it's being stolen from because they've been indoctrinated for so long.
Inflation is the most insidious tax a society can have because it's theft and it goes nowhere. It just disappears instantly.
In so many ways.
It's controllable. That's the other thing that really upsets me, is that you can control inflation. This is a choice.
Yeah, because we have to buy food for our family. We have to put gas in our vehicles. We have to pay our insurance. Like I looked at people who were trying to get insurance renewed. The insurance companies, it's not costing an insurance company 30% more to do business, but they're so wired because everybody else is wired and thinking, oh, we got to raise stuff. It's costing us this, whether the lights are on or off, whatever they're doing, they're justifying a 20 or 30% increase in these poor old people's insurance on their home here that, they're barely making ends meet on their Social Security and that kind of stuff, their pensions, whatever, and they're going ahead and gaffing them. Next thing you know, they're behind in that. They don't have insurance. They get behind in this. They're not eating right. They come, they take their house. And this is a whole, like, if you understand it, it is a way to absolutely pull the carpet out from not all the people, but some of the people, if you're not paying attention. And then the ones who aren't paying attention, they finally figure it out. It's hit them so hard in the back of the head. They're like, oh gosh, I wish somebody would have told me. Terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, inflation really hits three groups. I feel like it hits the seniors, people on fixed income. It hits the lower middle class because you are at the bottom of being prosperous, right? You have enough money to do the things that you want to do. You have a hobby, but yet you're also really close. You're only a month or two away from missing a large bill, or not being able to pay your mortgage, or not being able to pay your pay your car bill, stuff like that. And then also people under the poverty line, right? Now they might be getting government assistance, so that helps them stay afloat. So it's kind of like getting BAH and BAS on base, right? So even as a soldier, if I ran out of money on the 25th, I could still feed myself. I could still go to the cafeteria and get 2 meals a day, at least 2 meals a day. And then I would be fine. I can make it to the first of the month and get paid, and then do the whole thing over again, waste my money. Then again on the 25th or 24th, do it all again. But some of these people don't have that option to be able to use any of those resources or whatnot, or they've put themselves in that position. But the thing is, with inflation, it almost comes out of nowhere, like you're saying. It hits them in the back of the head, and then all of a sudden, I can't afford Netflix or whatever now. So now you're taking a bunch of these little tiny items off the top, and then you're just getting by.
So wouldn't that be considered inflation? And the creation and the illusion of it is basically another entity to steal some of your freedom. You can't take a vacation with your family. You can't drive this car because you had to sell your big truck because you couldn't afford the gas in it, because you got to drive a little car now. So it is all control, manipulation, and theft of freedom.
I hear people say things like they can't do anything outside work.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Because
crazy.
everything's gone to bills now.
Yep.
Horrible.
Well, they can't spend any money on gas to go anywhere but work. And especially if you're in like an area like Baltimore, if you're on one side of the bridge, you've got to go through the tunnel and pay the toll.
Oh, geez.
So you've got to pay toll every day just to get to work. And if the toll increases, if everything increases in your life, now you can't now you're just paying money just to get to work. Instead of now you've got to drive all the way through town, another 20, 30 minutes driving.
They gave you a 3.5% pay raise and you should be happy. That's covering. Isn't that the illusion there too? We're taking your inflation 10, 20, 30% up, but here's some scraps. While we while we dine on filet mignon and lobster, you guys go eat that's just how it is. And that's, if you don't understand it, you probably never will. Or if someone has told you about it and you've experienced it and exactly what they were saying is like, oh yeah, that really did happen, what they're saying. Once you learn that, you're like, okay, I'm gonna circumvent this. I'm gonna do some things. And whether it's a side hustle, whether it's going through your house and selling some items, if you get to that point, like people don't understand what their options are. I mean, you can live very meager and you can have very, very low threshold of debt. You can have your bills. You can decide to live in a smaller home versus a bigger home, your utilities. You can live in a RV or a fifth wheel. There's many measures to control your life as they are taking your freedom. And one of my key takeaways is here. I never had, when Sally and I left Arizona and we sold everything we owned and we jumped in that 24-foot toy hauler, towing it with our truck and our animals and basically just the clothes and suitcases. I mean, we didn't have anything. There was some stuff in storage, but
That was 2020.
I never felt so much freedom just going east, what was it, 1,700 miles to get to here. But as we stopped along the way, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana State, because I only drove 300 miles a day. I was like, that's my max. I'm just going to drive 300 miles. So we stayed in different towns, different cities, different towns, different places, talked to so many different people, living out of our RV, moving every 2 months when we got here for the better part of almost a year. We met so many different people, all different walks of life, what they were doing, learned their stories, heard all this stuff. And I never once heard people say or think that they didn't have freedom or liberty and they weren't enjoying what they were doing because they weren't forced into that life. They chose that life. And that's what they were doing. An older couple who sold their house up in Missouri, their farm and everything, jumps in an RV and that's their home. They say they're homeless, but so we can
relative to your outlook.
Yeah, it's your outlook. It's the way that you grasp a hold of these things. And like I said, there are so many avenues. If you're looking down on it and you're thinking forward and you're operating in a mindset that is just telling them you're not, no matter what you do, I'm gonna circumvent this. My freedom and liberty is not going to be taken through my money, through the way I live. I'm going to choose to live this way and make different modifications. So anybody has that ability to do that. And if you don't, you facilitate that. And when people talk about different lifestyles, when they talk about doing certain things, taking off in a sailboat for 2 years, they don't own anything but a sailboat and they're sailing around little places like that takes a dedicated person or group of persons. It takes a mindset of freedom. And these are things that we have. And like Ganglion was saying, what we do now, what we're envisioning doing and how we're molding ourselves, we have to pass that down to the younger generation. And then they have to learn these let's just call them tactics. Let's just call them, it's our battle rhythm, because once you have it in you, you never forget it. Once you learn it, maybe an uncle teaches it to you, maybe a good friend, something like that, and you build upon that, you never lose that spirit. They're not going to take your spirit no matter what.
Right.
I'm thinking about like exactly just that, thinking of like the different scenarios where someone said something and it really stuck with you about what does it mean to be free? Because that's the most important thing, right? Because you can be a slave anywhere, but you can only be free, where you're at.
Right. So that brings me to a good question.
Mhm.
What does a real revolution in this country look like to you? What would be your end goal, or what would life be like for you if we were to have 1776.2 happen?
For me, personally, and quickly to the point, it would be 350 million separate revolutions going on concurrently. Because only once we conquer ourselves, like the cliche say, then can we conquer the world. But it's absolutely true, because there's too many scenarios where we sit around and judge others for maybe something that we're actively doing. And
Right.
it's only once we put the work in do we realize how much work it really is, right? And so for me, there's a couple basic elements. Usually there's some type of oppression or dissatisfaction among the ranks. A realization nobody's coming for you. It is up to ourselves or up to the individual to decide what the course will be. And an absolute consistency in self-improvement and accountability in the highest order. Because without that, there's no one else, right? It's up to us to decide what do we want. That's what the founders decided. They said, we're going to decide the threshold of the reality we want. We want freedom. And so then you start working from there. So what begins nationally begins at home. And so only until we have our house in order can we expect our yard to be in order. And Dave mentioned this on the border a long time ago. Only once we manage our backyard can we expect the country to be better, right? I can't have someone from Nebraska come down to Texas or Arizona. It's really up to us in Arizona and Texas to make a stink. Like, this is not okay.
Right.
And then it'll snowball from there. But you can't implant ideas into areas where they're not really needed. So,
Nice.
revolutions result out of conditions usually.
What about you, Dean?
Well, my ideal of let's just say a modern day revolutionary mindset and the thought process that goes into it, maybe the expectations of what is going to be, casted upon people and how it's going to be done. My mindset on that is prepare myself mentally, prepare myself physically. Think every day that, okay, I need to do one or two things to move myself to the next square, that if indeed we get into a situation where the, let's just say 3 scenarios, banks collapse, major power grid failures, and a little bit of famine and food shortages, okay? That in itself right there, those type of, let's just say they're doctrines by the puppet masters, okay? So they would instill those things and then check the reaction of the masses to see how things are being facilitated, where they can tweak things and that. So the modern day revolutionist, the modern day patriot, the God-fearing individual is going to link themselves, number one, with like-minded people. They're going to look at things from a food standpoint, a medical standpoint, different types of conditions to move yourself along in your living standards. So I think a lot of it is, you say it's prepping, you say it's planning, a lot of it is that, but it's also doing and almost like acting out certain scenarios in your head and maybe like just, thinking things through to capture maybe just another notch, feather in your cap, whatever you want to call it, to just be that much more of a better person, to be able to help someone else out, thinking, you help your family out, you do that, but then in your other nucleus where you branched out and network with other people, whether, you're trading a certain item, a medical item, let's just say, something that's good for you, something that you would need in the time of sickness, or a service, or something that they do good and you do good. You gotta kind of think that mindset too. What can you bring to the game from that little nucleus, whether it's 6 people that you network with or hundreds of people. It just depends on how far you want to branch out. But yeah, the modern day prepper, the revolutionist, the patriot looking down on things has to do a lot of things in the preparation of the mind, the body, the spirit, the soul. But then you got to get those physical properties out there and grab a hold of those chess pieces and make sure that as they're doing this and things are happening, you're going to be able to move freely about the board, because once you're stymied like that and you're not able to, move around, get your supplies, get your food, and things aren't happening like that, that's where you're getting boxed in. And you never want to feel like that, because that's not number one. That's where your freedom right there is it's a freedom balloon and it's flying big, and all of a sudden the air is coming out of it and they're trying to squeeze it, and that's not going to, that's, we have to prepare ourselves in many ways.
Got to protect that. You got to keep that balloon full, because there's constant pressure deflating it.
It's your lifeline. It's your oxygen tank. It's it's your spirit. It's what makes you get up in the morning and do what you do.
Yeah, what gets you to keep going forward. Right? Isn't freedom like the sense of like the will to live? That's like what I kind of equate it to, right? Like you see single cell amoebas having the will to live, and it's like, isn't that freedom? Like freedom to live? Like I feel like it's hand in hand. Life is freedom.
It's the ultimate gift of freedom. The life is, and yeah, I mean, how can you put a price on that? How can you put a time limit on those things? You just have to live that life.
You can't put a pause on it.
It's very important. Very, very important for your soul and your spirit.
I do have an update for July 2nd. For Independence dates to remember, it was July 2nd that they formally adopted the Lee Resolution. And that it was this day that everyone should be celebrating, not July 4th. But we do on July 4th because that's when it was formalized and the final draft was approved. And that's what we see today. But what we celebrate on July 4th was actually signed and declared on July 2nd. So happy Freedom Day.
Happy Freedom Day, gentlemen.
So yes. It's let's celebrate.
We have next two days.
The next couple days, yeah. Now from now, yeah. The second, third, fourth, the fifth. Let's just call it Freedom Week.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah. Listen, the veterans only get a day, and certain people get a day, and the Rainbow Coalition gets a month, and the BLM or the other people, they get a month too. But let's just call this our Freedom Week. We're going to take a week, a segment of that year, and we're going to use that week thinking, oh yeah, there it is.
We're taking it back a whole week.
A whole week. There it is, day by day.
Whole week.
All the way till August 2nd.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America.
Amen.
Amen.
That's the engraving of freedoms right there, handed down through.
And you know what happens when you don't respect that? This guy comes up and tells you something different.
The gun. Mao took the guns. Fidel Castro took the guns. Hugo Chavez took the guns. And I'm here to tell you, 1776 will commence again. We gotta our firearms. Doesn't matter how many lemmings you get out there on the street begging for them to have their guns taken. We will not relinquish them. Do you understand? That's why you're going to fail, and the establishment knows no matter how much propaganda, the Republic will rise again when you attempt to take our guns.
Woo!
And they never took them.
That was 11 years ago.
Yeah, look at that date. I mean, look at the gentleman there. I mean,
that was babyface Alex Jones getting after it. 1776 will commence again.
And, well, yeah, I guess it will. I don't know. We'll see.
And it's like the shirt, just the shirt here. I wore the shirt for a reason. I mean, you know, I like my hats and my shirts, and I like to wear these things in public and get feedback from people if they like to comment. But the First Amendment, the year was 1670, and the case Bushnell sat on was that of William Penn, who was on trial for violation of the Conventicle Act. What is the Conventicle Act? The Conventicle Act. He broke it. He broke this thing that they were. This was an elaborate act that which made the Church of England the only legal church. So here we go. The freedom of religion, and this is my segue here. They took. We're going to get back into this. I'm going to just go off on a tangent. During COVID, they took our freedom of assembly, our freedom of religion. They tried to take so many freedoms, okay? And here, it was the only legal church. So we're telling you we're the only legal entity, and we're telling you you can't go anywhere, you can't go to church. So now we're telling you
these government churches over here, this is where you're allowed to go. That's it. The ones that are sanctified by us, that's where you're allowed to go. You're not allowed to go anywhere else. You're not allowed to read your Bible or whatever inside of your home.
And that's another good point there. Look at the head spinning when a few of these states and a few of these people are instilling the 10 Commandments. They're instilling the Bible back into the churches, the Christianity. Look at the evil spewing to fight these people, but they can go on the flip side of it and do all this other stuff and don't even think twice. So here, the act, this was an elaborate act which made the church the only legal church. So the act was struck down by their not guilty vote. Freedom of religion was established and became part of the English Bill of Rights, and later it became the First Amendment to the Constitution. In addition, the right to peaceful assembly was founded, freedom of speech, and also the habeas corpus. So these things that we understand and that we know, handed down from our forefathers, handed down through the many years of history in absolute fighting and basically grabbing back what was taken from you. Nothing's changed in 2.5 centuries. We're still fighting. We're still trying to take it back. It's being taken, and we're taking it back. And these documents, these historical documents, and the fact that you can go back and look what people experienced, we're experiencing the same thing in a modern day era. Same thing.
And I tell Brooke that pretty often. Times may change, human behavior does not.
No.
So, the technology's changed, but the human behavior, the psyche behind it, it's the same as it was 400, as it was 4,000 years ago. Doesn't matter. And so we have to safeguard our freedom as our life. Because the second you don't regard it in the same aspect, people start taking it from you, and they have been over and over again. And like Dave said about the Church of England, that's why the Spoffords left England in 1638, is because that's not the authority. Jesus Christ is. It's not the church. The church is the opinion of man. And so you have to decide. Will you go with the flow, or will you do what you intrinsically know which is right? And that's something everyone has to decide for themselves. But you can't make... We're in this messed up scenario now because everyone's reality is built on information that's not correct. It's just simply not. And I don't know where we go from here, or what we do with it, but people have to come to the realization that you've been misled at the highest order. And some people's entire reality is literally upside down, yet they view everything else as upside down. I don't know where to go with that. How do we deal with
us? Trust us. We're here to protect you. We're here from the government. We're here to help you. Type thing.
Well,
it's just
yeah.
The bottom is I tell people this all the time, and some will look at me crazy, and I said, "You've been lied to all your life." What do you mean? What? Well, and then I just start going off into a tangent and tell them, well, you've been told it's been this way, but it's actually not that way. And when you realize it's not that way, at first you get mad, you get a little butthurt, but then we become a little bit more savvy to what's been handed down generation after generation. And they know that if they can capture a group of people, a select group of people, and then branch out and capture the generation of that group of people, and then branch out and do another thing, they've captured it. People will believe what they tell them because that's what so-and-so told me, or,
it's comfortable.
If you're getting the right information, you'll know what the wrong information is. But if you've always been lied to and you've never been told the right information, and they continue to believe what they're telling you, you'll never know. You'll never know it's a lie, and you kind of feel betrayed once you figure it out. Like you get, like I said, you go once you know the game, you feel a little butthurt. I've been betrayed, but then you reset the dial and move on.
Well, it's just like what's happening with our government right now. They're saying one thing, but they're doing another thing. They're blaming one guy for wanting to do the very things that they're doing right now. And it blows my mind that 48% of the voters in this country believe that. They're going along with it. I think most people are waking up now, especially like the independents, the libertarians, the middle of the group. They're starting to realize that these people are saying one thing and doing a completely different other thing. And then they're telling you afterwards. So they'll say something and then they'll go do something else and then come back and say, "Oh, we didn't do that. That's a hyperbole. You're getting crazy. We weren't tyrannical during COVID or whatever." or after 9/11 happened, when you had the Patriot Act and all the NSA spying, and then the TSA,
a specific term
and
for
then
that,
this and that. You're just losing a piece of the pie. You're not compromising. Compromise means that you get
it's
something.
Called total domination, too. Scott. I don't think you understand.
You just keep losing a piece of the pie, and we're getting close to losing our pie.
Scott, that pie's been on a ship sailed long ago.
Want my pie back?
Yeah, I'm very concerned at the level of if you take
the level of disregard for accountability for actions, because the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that is going on with programs and monies that are being sent off into, it's not even far-flung places. A lot of this money is being sent to NGOs that are in your own backyard that are used then against your own interest, that are anti-American, and they're funneling it against you.
they're absolutely getting that funding, and they're communists and they're socialists, and their mindset is to go ahead and break your spirit and destroy your life and steal your freedom to be just like miserable like they are. And you know what? That's not my genetic makeup, and that just doesn't happen like that. So, you know, you can come at me left, right, and center, but I'll never succumb to that. I mean, that's just not going to happen. We got to think differently.
That's not where your freedom comes from.
No.
That's what they don't understand. They can take all those things and you'll still be free. Right? That's the assurance I had during COVID lockdowns and all their BS, is knowing I could be fired tomorrow. My family is not going to hold that against me because I wasn't fired for being a bad employee, right? Like, because I did my job, no problem. And so you can never be lukewarm. You have to show people what side you're on. People knew which side I was on from the very beginning. My boss is calling me, telling me, I got this guy from Montana. He's ready to quit instantly if I say anything. And I'm like, yeah, he's going to. I know it, because I will too.
Yeah.
And so we set the tone, honestly. We were telling him, like, bro, just let us keep doing our thing. And I think a lot of it was speaking up. You have to speak up. You have to defend your freedom, your sense of freedom.
In every aspect of your life, whether it's at home, work, grocery store, wherever you go, you have got to put out that energy of, I am my own individual. I am free to move about wherever I please. I'm free to do just about whatever I want without harming others. And you've got to make that known. You have to let people know, whether it's through your words or through your actions.
It's just a mindset. It's a way of life. It's a trail, a stepping block to your success. Because if you don't have a freedom mindset, and you're not broadening yourself out there to see, you know, what path you can go down, you're just kind of controlled in a narrow box. You didn't expand yourself. So the easiest way to keep people in check is to keep them in a box and control them. You know, obviously you're taking some of their freedoms and liberties, but not to let their mind expand itself to go out and free think and go out and grasp, you know, a whole multitude of things that's going to make your life better. And it's kind of, I would say it's more of a mindset. It's a way of life. It's kind of like a doctrine. It's a whole bunch of things intrinsically that you're going to do. Your mind actuates the physical aspect of you going to do something, and then you go grasp a hold of it. You take another individual, you know, you grab others, you do things, and that's how it's kind of fueled and funneled. They don't want you to do that. That's not what they want. So
they don't want the connection.
No.
So here's a quote from John Hancock. Resistance to tyranny becomes the Christian and social duty of each individual. And I think that's basically what we're getting to, is that, you know, maintaining your sovereignty and your free will.
It's the collective sovereignty and the collective individualism which has made America great. It's not having a whole bunch of people thinking the same way. No, it's having a plethora of individuals who can get together and hash things out and build something that's going to be the best, because you're imparting the best of everything. And we have to keep that. It's a special thing.
Exactly.
We have to protect our freedom of speech and assembly, because you don't have that anywhere else. And you have it here in America, where they're demonizing it through corporatocracy and through the media, to where you have these segmented populations which aren't segmented, because in real life there is no segmentation, right? Because you have friends with all kinds of people. it only exists in this, I say, fictional atmosphere online. You go to the store, it doesn't matter who you run into, you act the same,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We're not that far off. Like, America's not that far fragmented. They want you to think that, so then you can
Right.
never come to the table.
And that's why America is where we are right now, and that's why we're not a Venezuela. That's why we're not a Colombia, or why we're not, you know, a country that's just falling apart right now. Is the people are actually keeping everything intact, while the government is just imploding, and then just making their problems our problems. It's like, no, if you didn't do this, we wouldn't be having problems right now. If you knew how to negotiate with Russia, or if we didn't keep
any number of
NATO
things. I agree.
boundaries,
I
like
see what you're saying.
If we
energy policy, if our energy costs wasn't as high.
if we could figure out the border, you know, what was it? Only like 26 billion to build the whole wall.
It was 5 billion.
Now it was only 5. I thought it was 26, but that's far less than what we are handing out to Israel, what we're handing out to Ukraine, to where we're handing out probably to Mexico.
Bro, we'll give
Canada,
the most random
Germany,
country on earth 5 billion
England.
in a heartbeat.
Right.
For a study on something we'll never get back.
So to get deeper in that, if you have a country and it doesn't have borders, it doesn't have checks and balances, and it's being manipulated and controlled in such an aspect to where you're bringing people in from a multitude of countries, you're seeding them throughout places, wouldn't you be in a situation where you've completely...
See, Dave, we know the end of it. That's what's messed up.
That's it right there. I mean, so these things that are happening, it's a chapter, it's a storybook. It's happened in other places. We have to be savvy to where these things have taken place, and you got to look back as history is cyclic, and it does repeat itself over and over, and it's now a modern day era. We got to ask ourselves that question: where did this happen before? When did this happen? Now that it's happening here, what was the outcomes of all those other things? Was it, catastrophic? Was it fixed? Rectified through some type of plan or action? So we're when your sovereignty is being,
what role do we play in changing that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be bystanders to this. That's what I tell people. You don't have to wait for this to happen. You can change it today, just by changing the consciousness of America, by acknowledging that you are in fact not control of your representative democracy, right? Because we're not. Congress has a 90% dissatisfaction rate, yet they are reelected every time.
lame.
There's a disconnection. We need to fix it, and it's okay to
be
be
super PACs.
That's not going to be it. That's not going to be your solution.
No, within checks and balances, that we have to have our own way, like he's saying, to fix it.
You got to be active. You got to be engaged.
It's got to, like, when you saw the result of just a handful of people contesting an election, going and saying that voting machines, this and that, like all the stuff that they did, that handful of people wasn't a multitude of people. If that happens again, you need that 100-fold. You need that not just tens or onesies, twosies, or a few dozen here. You need that as a multitude, because it's already happened to you. Is that like the thing where you go out and you get stung by a wasp because you're playing with a wasp nest and they bite you? You're going to go out and let that happen to you again? No, you learn from that lesson. You got stung. So what is society going to do to go ahead and capture that and make those checks and balances? I mean, take that scale of whatever it is and level it up, because right now it's uneven. It's way uneven, and it's got to be leveled off. And it takes people. It doesn't take the government. It doesn't take a corporation. It doesn't take it takes people that want to make change, people that want to live in freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And
people practicing their rights out in public is a perfect example to keep freedom moving forward. When you tell somebody, hey, you can't open carry stupid, or you can't conceal carry, or you can't do this, or you can't say that out in public, or whatever. Do what you want to do. Open carry, conceal carry. Be able to move the way that you want to move and set the example. That's what I wrote down earlier. Set the example. And once people start seeing your actions benefit you, make you prosperous, they will then see that and move forward themselves. And possibly adopt the practices that you're following, or ask you like, hey, how did you come to this? Why do you think this way? Why do you act this way? How are you so strong in your stance that when somebody tells you to do something that's against your well-being or your mental health or whatever,
isn't that the story of Jesus on the cross? Like, exactly. You're right. You cannot be lukewarm. You have to decide, what do you want to be in life?
You have to be able to tell people straight up that this is what I'm doing. This is how I'm going about my life. You can't stop me. You're not going to stop me. You're not going to stop me from working out, going outside and enjoying the fresh air, enjoying the sun, getting my workout in, or being able to go to the woods and fish or whatever. And people get,
when you take control of that, that is freedom.
You start setting the example, and then your neighbors then follow suit, or they do the things that they want to do, and everybody's happier. Does that make sense?
Yes, because when people see you succeeding, they want to succeed. And so what do? They do something different, They see you doing something, they're gonna double up, right? They're gonna try and do something different.
Right.
And that's all we can do, because you can only lead, or they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. And that's part of the byproduct of just showing and demonstrating that, yes, what I've been doing has worked. Right?
Yeah, give a man a fish, or teach him how to fish, right? It's that thing.
Same thing.
It's that old thing. Yeah, exactly. So you've got to be able to set the example. Get your house, like you were saying earlier, get your house in order. Get everything situated for you, and then other people will follow.
Right. They'll see, right? Because I can't expect government to be frugal with its money if I'm not frugal with my money.
Right.
Right. Because that's an unattainable position for me to stand here and demand anyone, even my kids, and say, hey, you have to go to sleep. But then I stay up until 4 a.m. Right? Like, it wouldn't make sense. So you have to demonstrate what you expect from other people.
Well, yeah, it's supply and demand. When you're overusing something, then the government will come through and be like, well, let's tax the thing.
Oh yeah, you know what I saw the other day, and I sent this to my friend because I know he was from Miami. He's a boater, and he moved up here. It was a meter at a boat ramp that was free for decades, like, because he knew right where this place was, and I sent him it, and it was a meter for you to go ahead and meter your trailer and your boat. You sign into it, and you pay $70 for a day to launch your boat from there and park it. I mean, who came up with that? Like, that is, it's a people's property. It's not. The government doesn't own that. The city, they came up with it, and it was terrible. I mean, he says it's happening everywhere though. It was crazy. I drove. My daughter was here from England. We drove down to Destin, and the last time I was in Destin was 2020. And Sally and I were down there for Christmas. And when we first moved here, we were living in our trailer. We wanted to get out of the trailer, went down there. Found some little nice restaurants in the harbor, and you just drive up to these places and park. Just free-handedly drive about anywhere and park. Not an issue. I went down there with my daughter. I couldn't believe what it turned into. I mean, it's 2024,
I see what you're saying.
and there is a sign every 2 or 3 feet on every spot. You must park here. You must pay here. You will be towed. Like I went down there and I could not believe what happened to that place.
They have all those e-boxes, and you type in your license plate and stuff.
Everything. And I go down to the city. It's the same way. When I first came to Pensacola, no, I didn't see any of that. It was like far and few. There were some places, but now it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So, you're taking my freedom. Now I got to go park somewhere else and walk to, because I don't want to pay your tariff.
Well, I find it interesting. They take a public service and now it's private, right? Because you're paying for it, right? Why are you paying for a public service? That's what I don't get.
Correct. Yeah.
And so you used to just park on a public street, but now you're paying to park on a public street. So, like, what's changed?
But if you pay taxes, like, you pay, some of that goes to schools and roads and all that stuff. So now you're getting taxed again and again and again. Like,
He may have ventured too far from the farm.
I was just about to say what he was saying about.
Yeah.
We're back.
I just lost my train of thought.
Oh, you're back in. I think you went too far out.
About how our taxes. If we didn't send billions, trillions of dollars overseas, we could possibly have free national parks. We could have free areas that you could just walk in.
At a higher caliber of expectation as well. I mean, think about, exactly what you're saying. They could be free, and they could be like the best places in the world. People, from all over would want.
The people that manage those areas and
that's for another episode.
They could possibly
dreaming of a perfect government. We can't do that right now. It would take 3 hours.
Right. Yeah, we can't get into that. That's going to be part 2.
Because you're right. We should be able to go to a public park for free. We should have a lot of things for free. With how much money America has made and then sent off to far-flung lands, it's upsetting.
It sure is. Yeah, I don't want to get into it right now because this is Freedom Week. And I'll tell you what, gentlemen, I'm going to be blowing some stuff up with my neighbors. And it's going to be hooting and hollering and barbecuing. And it is going to be Alabama Freedom Night right into the wee hours of the morning. And you know what? I'm back in the backwoods now. I still got a signal. I'm trying to give you a 360 degree of what I deal with out here. There's a sugar shack right there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's where the big barbecue happens, right in there.
All right.
It's, not for the weak. You got to be ready to go in that place.
Not for the faint of heart.
No, we smoke them. We smoke them hard out there. Hopefully, Patriot Paul will be coming out in the fall, and hopefully we can get. You guys got a reunion coming up too, right? Don't you have something coming up soon? Yeah.
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend, and where's that going to be located?
Kentucky.
Bluegrass State.
What state?
No.
Kentucky.
You're going to a wonderful place. Yeah.
Bluegrass State. So we'll be near the border of Kentucky and Ohio.
It's where Scott and I met.
Oh, wow.
Kentucky.
We did. We met at Fort Knox.
Fort Knox. That's where all the
old Fort Knox
to be. That ain't there anymore.
Oh, the gold? Yeah. That's not there anymore.
That's not there anymore, no?
I mean, if it is,
it
doesn't back anything.
What's everybody's plans for the Freedom Week, the Freedom Day? What's everybody got doing right now? What's happening?
I'm going to probably cook a couple steaks and light off a whole bunch of fireworks.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm going to Julia's uncle's house, and then we're just going to spend all day barbecuing and tossing a few beers back and enjoying the day. I'll be in this t-shirt, in jorts, probably cowboy boots, and this hat. just living it up.
Alright.
Probably going to buy a giant squirt gun so I can stay hydrated and keep cool.
No water activities, nothing going on water.
I don't know.
No
I
water
got a
here.
6-month-old. Yeah, I got a 6-month-old. So we've gone to the pool, but we haven't gone to the lake yet. And there is an algae problem at one of our lakes because it's been so hot and we haven't gotten any rain up until 2 days ago. So there is an algae bloom going on at Blue Marsh Lake down the road from me.
Oh yeah, we got something similar that comes in the Gulf. We get this slimy seagrass, and we get a few other types of things that come in. It's just kind of nasty, but yeah, as the water heats up, the bacteria and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, I got my
Breeding
grandkids
ground.
coming over tomorrow. They're 4 and 8, and they're gonna bring over some drones, and we're gonna do some stuff here in the backyard, and then cook some burgers and dogs, and then we're gonna get ready for the 4th. That's a pre-warm up to it.
Yeah.
I need to get a drone.
Mm-hmm.
They look like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I just got one and programmed some stuff with it. It was actually a pretty good deal. It's a little bit of larger format. I'm gonna start doing some good pictures and video around here practicing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like
something
a lot of fun.
something to do.
I do have a meme before we go.
Let's do that.
Yeah, I got a statement too. So yeah, read that meme.
Woo! We are farming for you.
We have, why do Americans really celebrate? What do Americans celebrate? Tax evasion, disobeying orders, riots, vandalism, illegal gun ownership, and acts of treason.
Oh wow!
Don't
that's
forget your
terrible.
roots.
Don't forget your heritage. Don't forget your roots. That's a good statement.
Yeah, your heritage is violence.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, pop that one back up because I made that meme.
Scott made this. Either meme something worth reading or do something worth memeing.
Well, I didn't meme it. I didn't make it. I just added the tar and feather license plate. I found it and then I made the license plate.
Got it.
I had to put up that sweet Benjamin
It's looking
Franklin
great, Scott.
picture.
Good job.
That's
I
good.
thought it was awesome. I was like, oh, Benjamin Franklin all kitted out. Let's go. Man, he wasn't actually doing that in the Revolutionary War, but he was
had
doing
no
important stuff. He was over in France doing important stuff.
He was
Getting
very
us-
important.
Getting us money, getting us,
France,
all
our
that-
greatest ally, not Israel.
yeah. So yeah, I was listening to that book 1776 and it just made me think about, the things that the things that they gave up in order to be more free. They weren't well established. We're talking about the Continental Army. They weren't well established. They didn't have matching uniforms. They had shoes that they could barely wear or that were barely on. Some of them didn't even have guns. They were just having to bayonet people or whatever. Gunpowder was always wet because of the winter and being up in New York and up in that area. They were having difficulties with that. And of course, when they did cross the Delaware to go into Trenton, a lot of them didn't have shoes, and it was the middle of the winter. There was a nor'easter going through. The river was starting to freeze, and they had to make it over before it froze because they were afraid the British would attack as soon as the river was frozen enough for them to bring their cannons across and everything. And you know what? They built the ships. They got across the river. They made that trek down to Trenton. They took it over, and then boom. George Washington was like, all right, we're moving forward, and we haven't looked back since.
That's the resiliency right there. The resiliency of the will to grab your freedom and liberty and move forward with what your inalienable God-given right is. I mean, there's really nothing more than that would drive a person to that type of environment.
These men above all odds, against all odds, made all of that happen. So it's pretty amazing what a bunch of individuals can do with a common goal. It's pretty incredible.
And the thirst for freedom.
Oh, absolutely.
That is the common goal. That is their goal. Their goal is to preserve that freedom.
Yep.
And I didn't realize we were on here for an hour and 20, but my closing statement is very simple. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's liberty. 2 Corinthians 3:17. And because we're celebrating Freedom Week, the fireworks are in the document itself. Read the Constitution. Understand what has been handed down through history, how it affects us, what we're doing in our modern day lives to make sure that we preserve that integrity inherently and broadcast that feeling every day, because there's nothing better than to walk around and tell people you're happy, you're free, you're doing your life, the way that you see fit. And just a lot of those control measures, the shackles that, people allow themselves to have, they can break free from that too. Like Ganglion was saying, be the example, do these certain things to go ahead and instill that type of feeling. Others will get that feeling. They'll want to follow. They'll want to do the same thing that they see you doing. And you move on with life. Because if you let anything else get in the way, like we went through, we went through the pandemic, we're going through other stuff now. Those things are going ahead. They're distractions to your freedom, but they're also limiting each day, each week, each year of your life and what you're doing moving forward. So you really, it's actually like a master plan, and you're checking some boxes on some stuff, and you're kind of putting it all together. So that year that you had previous is a more savvy year coming, because you've already forecasted some things and you're making some changes. And sometimes I tell people, and I've told this to a lot of people, we get complacent. And when we get complacent in things, it kind of, you're sitting idle and you're thinking everything's all right in that complacency. But sometimes you need drastic change. Sometimes you need to make a dynamic change in your life. I'm not saying all the time, but maybe one turning point in your life was here, and this is a marker. Another turning point, you did something, and it might sound wild and crazy to some people, but you planned it and you executed it in a reason why, because you were forecasting something. And whether it got you to a different level, whether it brought you to more freedom and liberty, maybe it's setting you up for something that that you really didn't plan, but now because you've done it, it actually is the fortitude of your planning, and now it's the reward. So you gotta look at that. That's what we fight for every day. That's what they fought for every day. That's what my grandfather, even in the mindset of going to the Ardennes and fighting in that war and being a KIA and just fighting for freedom. That's what it's about. So continue to fight, never give up, never sacrifice what is our God-given right. It's what we live for.
Right. Manifest your destiny. Get it done.
That's right. I do want to state a simple quote before we go. By signing the Declaration of Independence, the 56 Americans pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. It was no idle pledge. 9 signers died of wounds during the Revolutionary War. 5 were captured or imprisoned. Wives and children were killed, jailed, mistreated, or left penniless. 12 signers' houses were burned to the ground. 17 lost everything they owned. No signer defected. Their honor, like their nation, remained intact. And that's something to remind yourself, is that regardless of how you feel, not a single signer ever reneged on their original pledge, and neither should you. You should respect the freedom sacrificed for you. It's in a unique position, and we are among the most limited on earth to be given such a position to then protect what we've been given. And we've been failing, and we really need to protect what we've been given. It's a unique position. There's no place on earth, and there's been no time in history where you've had so much freedom to do what you need to do and to say what you need to say. And the more we abstain from saying the hard things, the more we lose.
Absolutely. That is a closing statement to remember, something to live by, basically like a creed. And yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I hope your Freedom Week goes well. We'll get back together soon, I'm sure. Enjoy fireworks, family, friends, and freedom. That's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Thanks for coming on, Dean the Mean Remington. We appreciate you. We love you, brother. And as
Got it.
always, this is Tar and Feather Podcast. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.